Welcome to Land of the Bible. I'm David Sussman, your personal tour guide here in the land of Israel. And in today's episode, we are going to visit the Christian sites of Jerusalem. Jerusalem isn't just considered a holy place to the Jewish people, it's also considered holy to Christians around the world. And even though there are several Christian sites throughout the land of Israel, Jerusalem is at the heart of them all. Let's now meet a representative of the Christian community here in Israel and learn more about what Jerusalem has to offer Christian visitors. We're now joined by David Parsons, who's the Vice President and Senior International Speaker for the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. David, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about the Christian Embassy and what it is that you offer here.
The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is headquarters here in Jerusalem. We are a worldwide ministry focused on representing Christians from around the world who have a heart, a love, a concern for Israel and the Jewish people. So we represent Christians around the world who want to get involved in this great ingathering and be a part of it, and we offer many ways for them to do that.
So tell us a little bit about what a Christian should see when they visit Jerusalem.
Well, I have friends who visit me, and sometimes they only have one day really to get out and see the holy sites in Jerusalem. And my rule, if I have someone and only one day to show them the sights of the city, I take them to the 3 G's, as I call them. This would be the Gethsemane, where Jesus was betrayed, St. Peter and Gallicantu, where he was denied by Peter, and then the Garden Tomb, which is a beautiful natural setting that tells the story of the crucifixion, the burial, resurrection of Jesus in this incredible way. And
let's start with the church on Gallicantu.
First of all, it's a first century site. There are steps that lead down from what we call Mount Zion that are from the first century. There's no doubt Jesus walked in this area. And what we have there is a Jewish home. There are mikvahs, ritual baths there, which means it was Jewish, but it has a prison under it. And it's a large, spacious home, a palace, if you will, with a prison under it. And the only Jewish person who would have mikvahs and a prison under their home would have been the high priest at that time, Caiaphas, because the Romans had taken over all criminal law, civil law, but they still allowed the Jewish people to maintain order up on the Temple Mount and anything related to temple service, and could enforce Jewish law there. And therefore, if they had to imprison someone, it was a limited area of criminal jurisdiction for violating some of the rules around the Temple Mount. And this would have been where Jesus would have been taken, would have been tried, whipped, and lowered into a pit. You even have a water cistern that's 2 or 3 stories below ground, where the book of Psalm, I believe it's chapter 88, comes alive. I'm lowered into the pit, all my friends have scattered. And for a Christian visiting this site, I would say it's probably the most authentic site related to Jesus in Jerusalem. Outside, they've found a outdoor fireplace that some of the remains, they've dated it as well to the 1st century, and and this is where Peter would have been standing outside. It was cold, it was March, and there was a fire going, a charcoal fire, and this is where he denied him 3 times. So it's a very special spot.
I can understand why a Christian would gravitate naturally to this site, knowing that it dates to the time period which is given to being the time period when Jesus would have walked around Jerusalem.
Yes.
I know for myself, being Jewish, that when I visit the biblical sites, the Jewish scripture sites, knowing 100% that my great-great-grandparents actually stepped foot in those same locations. For me, it's overwhelming. I would imagine it's the same for a Christian going to a place that dates back to the 1st century CE, which of course is when historians say Jesus existed.
Yes.
So let's move on over to the Gethsemane, the church at Gethsemane, which is also located on the Mount of Olives. Tell us a little bit why this place is so significant.
Well, most Christian pilgrims, they visit the Greek Orthodox site there, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Church of All Nations. And some of the olive trees in this garden are hundreds and hundreds of years old. It may not be the authentic site, but it works for me. When I visit there and consider Jesus praying, not my will, but yours be done, and having this real travail in submitting himself to what he knew he had to suffer, you can really identify with that moment in the life of Jesus, that he is our example as a Christian. We need to submit our own will and our own lives to God. It's a place that Christians can stand there and feel the agony that Jesus was going through in that moment.
So tell us a little bit more about the Mount of Olives in general, where the Church of Gethsemane is located.
Well, the Mount of Olives has this unique distinction that it's considered important in Judaism and Christianity, and even in Islam. The Kidron Valley that separates the Mount of Olives from Mount Moriah is the place of judgment for all people. So, so much of the biblical story of redemption begins and ends here. In Christian tradition, Jesus even returns just as he ascended from the Mount of Olives, he'll return there. So you can go all the way from Abraham, who visited the site, all the way into prophetic passages that talk about the Messiah coming in Zechariah. It's actually Jewish Tanakh, Old Testament scriptures, that his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, it'll split. I think there's something about the olive tree itself, which there's large groves there, that it's part, a lot of these ancient trees, the older ones, part of it's dead and yet there's still life in it, and you can bring dead branches back to life by grafting them in. There's a lot of passages about Gentiles being grafted in, and so it's a wonderful place to visit, and to also a stunning view of the old city of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount.
And of course, you also have the Mount of Olives Cemetery, which is the oldest active Jewish cemetery in the world. And we even know the burial plot of one of the kings of Israel and 3 of the prophets of Israel.
There are moments in life that define you and leave you forever transformed. Like a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the source of your faith. Walk in the steps of Jesus and experience history beyond its words. Sail the ancient Sea of Galilee to the holy shores of the River Jordan. Your journey begins here.
So let's move on to the third site that's just beyond the old city walls that you mentioned as part of the 3 Gs, and that was the Garden Tomb.
Most Christians visit the Holy Sepulchre. It's inside the old city walls today. The scholars tell us it was probably outside the city walls in the time of Jesus at the Holy Supper. You can visit there, but a lot of Protestants, and not just them, but evangelicals especially, but even Catholics and Orthodox Christians visit the Garden Tomb as well. It's north of Damascus Gate, outside the old city walls today, and they visit because it's this incredible natural setting where all the elements of the story of the resurrection of Jesus, his crucifixion, his burial, where he rose from the dead, it's all there in a natural setting, that you have a place of crucifixion. There's a quarry. It was a first century rock quarry, which was also a place of execution. It was along a highway where the Romans would have crucified someone, and right beside it, as the Gospels say, there's a garden with a tomb in it. There's a first century tomb in the Garden Tomb where no one had been laid yet. There were no even the stone burial boxes that you find in a lot of first century tombs for Jews in the city. There were none here. So here we have a first century tomb owned by a Jewish man where there's no bone boxes in there. No one had been laid, but there was a viewing table, and you have a huge water cistern. It's probably the largest privately owned water system in Jerusalem at that time, and beside it a wine press, which there would have been a vineyard there, a wine vineyard where he made wine. So it was a garden owned by a rich man with a tomb in it. This fits all the elements of the story, and in this natural, quiet setting, you can contemplate the whole story of Jesus going to the cross, being taken down, prepared for burial, laid in a tomb, and resurrected. All the elements are around you. They don't claim it's the authentic site, but again, it works for me in an incredible way. If it's not the real site, it's a gift from heaven to tell that story.
So you mentioned the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Old City. So let's go into the Old City, and let's begin with the Via Dolorosa, which is the path that Jesus would have taken in order to arrive at the church. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, there's a traditional route of the Stations of the Cross. There's more than a dozen of them that started where they thought the Antonia Fortress would have been, where the Roman soldiers beat up Jesus. They punched him, they plucked his beard, they put a robe and a crown of thorns on him, and it would have started there. You're actually a layer or two, 8, 10, 15 feet above where the city was in the first century. So you may be over a spot, but not on the actual site. But a lot of that route is under question. I think there's a lot of consensus among scholars today. You want to come and let the Bible here in the land of Israel, when you visit, it becomes like a pop-up book. The reality of the stories, whether it's the Old Testament prophets, David, Abraham, Moses, the stories come alive. And if you're a Christian, the New Testament stories of Jesus, John the Baptist, Peter, Paul, they all come alive when you visit, see these places. It just, you go back with a lot more confidence and assurance in the Word of God, and a lot more understanding of the setting which all these events happened in.
So in the Christian Quarter, there's not just the Church of the Sepulchre. Can you tell us about some of the other sites that are in the Christian Quarter in particular, and in the Old City in general?
Well, I think what's important for Christians visiting the land and visiting the Old City is not just the churches and the rocks and the stones, but even Christians visiting Israel. You want to see modern Israel, and you also want to see who are the Christians here today. So if you want to go to the Christian Quarter, or say the Armenian Quarter, I just suggest that you meet with some local Christians and let them tell you about their family history. These are Christians who have lived here for generations and generations. They've been born into, baptized into, married into, and they're buried in the same church as their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Some of the churches in the Christian Quarter, if you go there, say on a Sunday service, some of the liturgy is actually in Aramaic, which was the original language that Jesus spoke in addition to Hebrew. It was like the lingua franca of the region at the time. And even there's some Hebrew in some of the Christian liturgy of some of these ancient churches. And of course the Armenians, if you visit the Armenian Quarter, you've got these incredible craftsmen who have kept alive survived these trades handed down through many generations as well, and they have their own story of Christian witness through difficult times.
There are moments in life that define you and leave you forever transformed. Like a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the source of your faith. Walk in the steps of Jesus and experience history beyond its words. Sail the ancient Sea of Galilee to the holy shores of the River Jordan. Your journey begins here.
Jerusalem is the only place in the world that both Jews and Christians consider holy, and where Muslims have called it their home after building the Dome of the Rock at the location of both Jewish temples. There's no place that epitomizes this more than the Old City, where behind me you see the third station on the Via Dolorosa, as well as a house of study for Jews known as a yeshiva. And the whole time, here we are standing in the middle of the Muslim quarter in Jerusalem's Old City. The area is steeped in layers of history. In any given location or church, you could find ruins that date back to the Byzantine period, nearly 1700 years ago, or the Crusader period that dates back close to 1,000 years ago. And of course, recent churches like the one behind me, which is known as the Church of the Redeemer, a Lutheran church that was built in the beginning of the 20th century by the Kaiser Wilhelm II. Right in the heart of the Christian Quarter is an area known as the Muristan. Here, one can find shops selling anything imaginable, from backgammon boards, religious relics, jewelry, scarves, antiques. You name it, you can find it right here, and at a great deal as well. Or if you just want to take a load off and relax for a while, enjoy a cup of Arabic coffee or a traditional Middle Eastern meal of shawarma, kebab, or of course, the famous Israeli hummus. This is the place to do it while visiting the Christian Quarter. Let's now continue to walk around and visit some of the sites here. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Ahlan wa sahlan. You are welcome.
Can we get one of the traditional cups of Arabic coffee?
Sure. You like it with cardamom, with sugar, with no cardamom, with no sugar?
We'll take it with a little cardamom. Salam. As you can see, thousands of people visit Jerusalem every year on various religious pilgrimages. Here in the Christian Quarter, you'll find Christians from around the world following the path of the Via Dolorosa, onwards to the Church of the Sepulchre, where many Christians believe the crucifixion and resurrection would have taken place. Oh, amazing.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much, sir.
Enjoy this coffee with cardamom.
Okay. Arabic coffee here in Israel is called mud coffee. And the reason why is after you grind up the coffee beans, you boil it in the water and then you leave it inside. So you have to wait a couple minutes for it to settle, and then you can pour some into your cup and enjoy a nice cup of coffee. Oh, that's amazing. Even though the Armenians of Jerusalem today are Christian, they have their own quarter. Why is that? Well, the history of the Armenians dates back 2,000 years, when they were originally hired as mercenaries by the Roman Empire to put an end to the great Jewish revolt against Rome, which culminated with the destruction of the temple in the year 70 CE. At the end of the war, 2,000 years ago, the Romans offered the Armenians a section of Jerusalem if they would stay here and become merchants. Well, they did just that, and they even became so powerful here in Jerusalem that they ruled the city for a number of years. However, the Armenians who live here today aren't descendants of those Armenians from 2,000 years ago. Rather, they arrived here just about 100 years ago. Let's now meet somebody from the community and find out why. I'm here with Garos Androuni, whose family arrived to Jerusalem in 1918 after fleeing the Armenian genocide which was being perpetrated by the Turkish Empire. They brought with them the Armenian tradition of creating some of the most beautiful pottery in the world. And Garo himself has opened up his personal shop with his wife Sonia in 1983 and have been creating and painting the pottery you see around me ever since. If you're visiting the Armenian Quarter, make sure to stop by and say hello to Garo.
There are moments in life that define you and leave you forever transformed. Like a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the source of your faith. Walk in the steps of Jesus and experience history beyond its words. Sail the ancient Sea of Galilee to the holy shores of the River Jordan. Your journey begins here.
So tell us a little bit about the Christian Embassy and what you offer in order to allow tourists to come to Israel.
The Christian Embassy has many ways that we bring Christians to the land and let them see it, not just a traditional tour of the holy sites, the Christian Jewish sites, the biblical sites in the land, but we also try and connect Christians to modern Israel, the modern miracle of Israel. One example, we have a gathering in the winter, usually in January each year, called Envision. It's for pastors and ministry leaders. You're going to get a lot of teaching. You can then tour the land. We take you to sites here in the land that a lot of tour groups don't go to. We also have in the summer a young adults for young people, youth and young adults, a special tour for them, which you're seeing the sites. You're getting a lot of lectures, not just biblical, but also modern Israel. You're visiting high tech and such. You're sleeping in Bedouin tents, riding camels, going on Jeep rides through the desert, or maybe raft rides down the Jordan, doing fun things, hiking, going to cliffs and exciting areas that young people want to go, and also taking part in volunteer projects where you're doing charitable work. You're meeting young people your age, whether they're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, from many backgrounds, and trying to relate to them, to bring peace, coexistence as well. And then, of course, the Christian Embassy is probably best known for our annual Feast of Tabernacles gathering. It's in the fall each year, usually September, October, according to the biblical calendar, and it's one of the three major pilgrimage feasts that God gave Israel in the wilderness under Moses. There was Passover, Pentecost, and Tabernacles or Sukkot, where Israelis build these temporary booths in their yards or on their balconies. They eat there and such. Well, this was the one pilgrimage feast where the Christians, the Gentiles, in ancient times were also invited to come up and worship the Lord here in Jerusalem. We've revived this tradition in modern times. We usually get 5,000 or 6,000 Christians here, and
Wow.
you can not only take a tour of the land, but you get a whole big dynamic worship experience, lots of good teaching at a huge, the largest Christian gathering in Israel every year at the feast. We have social projects all throughout the land trying to help the poor, the needy, youth at risk, the elderly. We've got a lot of focus right now on helping poor Holocaust survivors. We think they're the most deserving, worthy of any of the people in need here in the land.
David, thank you for spending this time with us and sharing your personal insight into Jerusalem. But foremost, I want to thank you for connecting Christians around the world to the Jewish people and reminding them when it says in the book of Genesis that God has given the land of Israel to the Jewish people, Leolam Va'ed, which in English means forever. And for that, we owe you a debt of gratitude. So thank you once again. Stay with us here on Land of the Bible. Join us next time on Land of the Bible as we explore one of Israel's 4 deserts, the Arava Valley, to learn about how we've made the desert bloom, created industry, and developed communities throughout its region. Wow, what an amazing day it has been exploring the Christian sites here in Jerusalem. Thank you for watching Land of the Bible. And remember, I'm David Sussman, your personal tour guide here in the land of Israel. Make sure to join us next time as we connect you to the people, places, and land of the Bible.